Hi everybody, I'm Pamela. Welcome to my channel. I have a great recipe for you today. Now that the weather is starting to get a little chillier, we've got some new produce in season. I have a great fall salad for you that's utilizing some interesting ingredients as far as salads go. I want to show you how to make a roasted apple and delicata squash salad. Okay, let's do it. For this recipe, you're going to need a couple of delicata squash, which look like this, and a couple of apples to start. Now, what's amazing about delicata squash is that you can actually eat the entire thing, skin and all, which makes it great for lazy people like me, because you don't have to peel it. Just wash it really well. So the way you prep it for roasting is just slice off the top stem and that little bit of the bottom end, like that. And then you want to just cut this in half. So for a big squash like this, I like to go halfway, cut all the way down, flip it around, and then cut it down like that. Then you're gonna scrape out the seeds, just like you would any kind of winter squash. Comes out really easily, like so. You're gonna put this cut side down, and then slice this into half moons about this thick. And we're gonna do this with the other half and the other squash. Delicata squash has a nice, mild, sweet flavor, kind of similar to other winter squashes. And it's really easy to meal prep as well. So you can get this part done day before and just put them in a container or a bag. Or you can roast the squash entirely the day before and bring it to room temperature before you add it to your salad. Now, once you've gotten your squash cut up, then you're gonna move on to your apples. Apples are one of my favorite fall fruits. They're so versatile, they're so good for you. Choose any apple that you enjoy. This is a Fuji apple, but Honeycrisp work great, so do Granny Smith and Pink Lady. Those are kind of my favorites. Keep the skin on, and what you're gonna do is just cut off the cheeks on opposite sides and then the smaller sides like that. And you're gonna cut these into pretty large chunks because they are going to shrink. And then we're gonna throw this onto the sheet pan with the delicata squash. And I think that roasting apple is something a little unexpected for a salad. Very often we are eating them raw in a salad, and you can certainly use them raw in this salad, but this is a really delicious way to enjoy them. And I'll show you in a second what herb we're gonna toss with this before we start cooking. Now that we have the apple chopped up, we're gonna just take some fresh rosemary. If you have dried, you're welcome to use that too. Just use about 1/3 of the amount listed in the recipe. But the rosemary here, I think, is the secret to making this taste interesting and delicious. Apple and rosemary is such an amazing combination, and I actually love using fresh rosemary in a lot of fall roasted vegetable dishes. So just chop this up as finely as you can. Just kind of snowplow it together like that. Chop, 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 chop. And then we're gonna add it to the veggies. Now, don't think that we're gonna roast these vegetables on one sheet pan. This is just to toss them together. I have another sheet pan ready to go. And you can use either olive oil or coconut oil to roast these vegetables. They both taste great with these ingredients. And don't overdo it on the oil, because that's just gonna make them poach and not get caramelized. So toss them around so that they're lightly coated. I always do this with my hands. That way I can really feel like what's coated and what needs a little bit more oil. And once you have them lightly coated, spread them out on both of your baking sheets. And then we're just going to sprinkle them with a little salt and pepper before we get roasted. All right, now sprinkle some salt. Everything sweet needs salt too. So the salt and the apples are absolutely amazing together, like that. And some pepper, just eyeball it. You don't have to overthink this. You can put as little or as much as you want. All right, so now we're gonna roast this in the oven. I highly recommend whenever you're doing more than one sheet pan to use the convection setting on your oven. It just gives a better all over heat. And it's really good for high moisture vegetables. It really helps to kind of dry out that extra moisture that the vegetables release. When the vegetables are done, they're gonna look caramelized, slightly golden on the edges. They do shrink quite a bit, as you can see. The apples will also have a nice bit of caramelization, and they smell so good. So you can let these cool to room temperature or warm, but I would not put this on a salad hot out of the oven. All right, let's set these aside and let's work on the dressing and the greens. All right, it's time to make the dressing. I love using these kind of old jars that I used for something else. Just reuse them again for this. And you can make your dressing fully in advance. So we'll start with some salt and some pepper, Dijon mustard, which gives it a nice tang, helps to emulsify the dressing. A drop of maple syrup, which you can also swap in some honey, but this brings out the sweetness from the apples. The acid that I'm using is some apple cider vinegar, one of my favorites, and then we've got olive oil. That's it. Super, super, super easy. Let's shake this up. And that's your dressing. You can make this a week in advance. You can even freeze it for a couple of months. All right, let's assemble our salad. I have a mixture here of arugula and some endive and romaine. Really, you can use whatever you like, but just make sure that you don't have too much of moisture in your greens. Your greens should be super, super dry. Otherwise, your dressing is gonna get, number one, diluted, but also your dressing's not gonna stick to greens that are wet. I like to toss my salad in a nice big stainless bowl before I present it. So I'm gonna take my cooked squash and apples and then just drop them in to the salad bowl, like so. And you can see why it's much better if the ingredients are not super hot, because you don't want your greens to wilt, like that. And then we're gonna toss our salad with the dressing. And it's always best the first time that you make a salad to underdress the salad, because an overdressed salad is hard to remedy. You can always add more dressing. But I love the contrast of like that peppery arugula with the sweet squash and the sweet apples. Okay, so let's plate this up. The reason I like to do this in a stainless bowl is so that kind of looks a little cleaner in my salad bowl, like that. And it's a lot easier to toss in a big giant bowl than something like this narrow platter. Perfect. We have a couple more things to add to this. The next couple of ingredients that I wanted to add would be some Manchego cheese, which is a sheep's milk cheese. It's really mild and super nutty. A lot of people know what it looks like from this kind of cross-hatch rind, sort of the telltale sign of Manchego. I love it. I put it on a lot of cheese boards and most people really like it. So I'm gonna just shave a little bit of it onto this salad. If you don't eat cheese, then don't add it. But if you can't find it, you can use something like Parmesan cheese or a goat cheese, or even a feta would be delicious on here. So I just take a vegetable peeler and just sort of shave it like that. It's really easy, not fussy, makes it nice and thin, so a little goes a long way. But the flavor is really, really good with the squash and the apples. And this part you can also do in advance. And that way you're not having to do this at the last minute. There, that looks great. And lastly, I always like a crunchy component, whether it's a nut or a pumpkin seed like this. And these were done in a dry skillet, and let me show you how I do it. So over medium heat, you're just going to saute your pumpkin seeds. There's nothing in here. It's just a dry skillet. You can start to hear them popping a little bit and starting to turn a bit golden. And if you smell them, if you smell that nuttiness, then you know that they're probably ready to go. So this is just an easy way to do it, but I never leave the stove because they'll burn super fast. Okay, so once they start to get a little bit golden, you can put a drop, like 1/8 of a teaspoon of oil and a nice pinch of salt. Then transfer them into a bowl to cool down. Just sprinkle these on top. And I love pumpkin seeds, especially for people that can't have nuts, because it does give a nice crunch. Just make sure you have a little bit of salt on them so they taste good. This salad is gorgeous. It's seasonal, not that hard to do. It'll impress your family and friends. So many good flavors here. The rosemary is so earthy, and the sweetness from the apples and the squash is so good with the arugula and that little bit of salty nut and cheese. Truly, this is my most favorite fall salad, and I think you guys are gonna love it too. If you like this video, please hit like, subscribe, share it, and check out my channel for more recipes like this. Okay, I'll see you guys next time in the kitchen.